Behold, the sword of power, Excalibur.
Right now,
Yep,
right?
we're
I should
recording,
just do the
so
thing.
yeah, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so let's just get into it. So welcome to the second annual Gosh Golly Wow holiday special, coming at you on video this year, much like we did last year. Just gonna do some reflections on the year that was, and I'll do a version of our usual intro. So this is the podcast where we talk about Excalibur and nothing but Excalibur, but occasionally things that aren't Excalibur for 126 plus weeks. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Anna Papard. Talk about sexy, gendery things and Nightcrawler a lot. He's been absent from a couple of issues lately. It's been difficult for me, but I'm persevering. And I'm joined, as always, by Mav. How is the start of the holiday season treating you so far?
I mean, today is actually Christmas, right? If I lost
think this
track of our
episode comes out on Christmas Eve.
Oh, okay, sure, okay. Well, I'm preparing for Christmas right now and probably sleeping. And as you listen to this, I'm really bad at podcast time travel, is what I am. I'm doing all right. Things are easing up. I am done with grading. I got my PCA ACA abstract in for that conference. I need to work on CSS. It's a bit I got more time for that. I'm hard at work trying. So the thing with taking like a break as an academic, it means that this is the month where I don't have to grade papers. So it's the month where I write everything else that I was supposed to have been doing for the last 3 months. I'm catching up. So I got a chapter in this book on Batman that so our friend Joe Dorowski edits that collection, and he listens to the show. So yeah, Joe, almost done. Any moment now. Really close. No, I actually am pretty close. I'm actually very much enjoying what I'm writing. It's just like trying to get from being behind. Actually, by the time Joe listens to this, I might be done. I could very well be done, because it'd be my goal is to be done before Christmas, and this would be just before Christmas. So that's where we are. So I'm having a great time.
Yeah, I'm like trying to find space to prep stuff for next term, and I think at this point I've kind of given up. I lost the whole day doing Christmas errands yesterday, and then I just had the splitting headache when I came home. I'm just like wrapping stuff in like a migraine haze, and I'm just like, why is this so hard? I'm buying presents for like 4 people this year. I've got nothing to complain about, and I'm not grading because I wasn't teaching this term. I have to learn like a lot of new tech for like my 2 new schools that I'm teaching at and stuff, so that's just been like slowing me up a lot and stuff. I was like, remember the days where you would just like write down some notes and then just roll into your live class and be like, let's have a discussion?
No, I no longer remember that.
Oh boy, I gotta do like a Teams meeting and like a lecture video and like figure out what I'm doing for students who can't be there because they're sick, and course website, and putting together all of these manual PDFs of like excerpts of underground comics. That took forever, just thing after thing. But I'm getting there. I'm getting to the point where I actually can think about possibly writing some lecture content for next term. So that's exciting. Anyway, Andrew, how are you feeling? Are you still in grading hell, or are you nearing the end?
I'm close. I had my last 5 essays I was working on this morning, and a plagiarism case came up. And it's like, please don't do this to me now.
No.
I'm so close. Yeah, other than that, same course prep, getting a whole lot of stuff ready. But I like course prep. I like the macro designing of what's going to be in the syllabus and all that kind of stuff. That's fun for me. Yeah, so I know I'm doing good, and then just planning Christmas for 2 tiny people who should have a lovely holiday.
That's good. Can I give my I've done it on my other show, but I don't think I've ever done it on this show. Can I give my just very brief mini lecture on plagiarism for anybody who might be attending college one day, or is like, so as an instructor on any level, college, if you're high school, elementary school, whatever, I'm speaking on behalf of all teachers. Don't plagiarize. Not because I care about academic integrity, which I do, but not because of that reason, but because the amount of paperwork that it invents for me personally, you are hurting me. And I don't want to deal with that. It is, if you're going to fail the class, fail on your own merit. It's okay. Like, people fail classes all the time. Don't cheat. You're going to get caught. And then like the level of extra garbage that you have created for me or whoever your instructor is personally it's just exponentially worse. And I will hate you. I will, wish harm upon you and your entire future lineage. Please don't do it. It is so bad. It is such a nightmare to deal with, just because you felt like stealing 2 paragraphs from something, like the exponential amount of just utter bullshit that gets triggered because you decided you wanted to cheat. So not worth it for me. So for me personally, please just don't do it. I would rather you just happily, particularly take your D, just suck it up and just deal with it. It's fine. That's my little rant.
All I will add is that it's also insulting to my intelligence. You think I don't notice I'm reading 100 papers, and all of a sudden you start sounding like an Oxford graduate in 2 paragraphs. You think I'm not going to red flag that? Okay, sure. Perfect crime.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, but yeah, I just am shuddering in sympathy for that feeling of you're reading it and you're sort of starting to realize oh man, this is going to be a pain. I just want to grade it. I don't want to have to contact an office and deal with paperwork and instigate. No.
It's almost like a court case at this point, the amount of paperwork you have to do to bring forward. It's obscene.
Yeah, and it's painful. It is so bad. And it's just and like Andrew said, it's not like you're going to get away with it, because the amount of work it would take to get away with it is so much more work than just write a paper. Just write a paper. It's college. They're I'm not expecting you to write, I mean, unless you're actually working on your dissertation, I'm not expecting for you to write a doctoral dissertation here. I'm just, we're talking a 6-page paper usually. Just do it. It's fine. Particularly for the classes that I teach. You're probably allowed to write it on Batman. Just, it's fine. Do whatever. Just don't cheat. It's so not worth it. And also, if it's a comics class and you're plagiarizing, not only will I notice that you sound different, there's a high likelihood that you're plagiarizing some friend of mine.
Yeah.
Because we literally know everyone in the field.
Has someone told you that before? I've had that a few times of people who are teaching classes and they told me that their student plagiarized me.
I've had several people I know. I've never caught anyone who has plagiarized me directly.
That'd be so cool though.
I know a professor who has, who's I recognize this because I wrote this. I know someone who's had that happen to them. This is something that I wrote years ago, but I've run into several copies of work of random friends of mine. I don't know if it's ever been either of you, but yes, it's. I was this is I've heard this paper before.
The more cheerful version of that is that I do have a childish glee being able to teach comics. I mean, it's amazing. It's what is my life that this is what I get to teach? Yeah, but
don't tell anybody that this is an actual job. Please don't pay too much attention because I don't want it to go away.
I don't get paid well. So
sure, same.
But but still
it's a job.
Like,
yeah.
It's a job. I'm getting money to do this. So, but if I am reading a term paper and somebody cites, like, because I mean, the comic studies community is not that big.
Yeah.
I basically know everybody.
Yeah, it's like,
And so when somebody, and like, I still get like this glee of like, I'll be reading it and I was like, oh, Susan's my friend. And like, I start writing a comment like that on the paper. I was like, oh, so glad to see you cite Susan. She's so great. And I was like, the student doesn't care. Why?
No. Well, no, I've had Super Sex cited.
Cool.
Yeah. Super Sex has been cited several times, and it's like, yeah, I know them. It's like, yeah, because there's four books in existence that say sex and comics in the title. So yeah, like there's a high chance that if someone's writing about that, one of them's your book. Because what other options do they have? But it does feel, yeah, it is really always awesome to see that and you go, oh, that's neat.
Yeah,
Somebody
I
know
that
we're not tossing stuff into the academic void. Anyway, Andrew, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I was telling Anna earlier that the best paper I received in my comics course this term cited Anna 3 times, and I was like, good choice.
Yeah. I mean, part of me always wonders, I mean, do you think you're sucking up, or is it just, again, that there are only 250 people in the field, and but I mean, do they, like, because it's pretty clear that, like, say the 3 of us know each other, right? Like it is not a hard thing to figure out.
Well,
right.
I was talking with somebody about this recently. I was like, oh shoot, I haven't been in the classroom for a while, like as an instructor, and should my Twitter be more professional? I was like someone pointed out to me, like, Anna, your Twitter is so vanilla, and I was like, this is true, it really is. I think a lot about what I tweet. I mean, I tweet a lot of sexy Lucifer stills, but I don't tweet any naked ones because I have, some decorum.
Standards.
My professional website has me be body slamming people on it. You'll be fine. It's and no,
I don't really worry about it. I mean, I study sex and comics. I mean, I think it's what you would expect. So,
well, it's the same thing. It's like I always wonder where people like, so, and I could say this on air now because I don't work there anymore, but when I was working at Duquesne for so many years, which is so Pitt is a public school, right? Like, I expect a little more leeway. But I worked at Duquesne University. It's where I did my doctorate, and I worked there for, basically for almost 10 years. And I always wondered, like, this is a Catholic school. This is a private Catholic university. Did no one Google me before they worked here? Because I was an erotica photographer for like a decade and a half, like there's lots of, what you would clearly consider porn with my name on it that, like, I shot, like, because I used my real name. It's like, shot by Christopher Maverick, here are naked pictures. Like, why is this okay with anybody? But all right. And people, and it's not like I hide from it. I used my name. It's on my website. Same thing with, every once in a while I would have like a job where, not so much in academia, but when I was a software designer, people was like, well, we've discovered your secret. We found, we found these pictures of you wrestling. I'm like, you didn't discover my secret. I used my real name. Like, you literally Googled me. It comes up. What are you doing?
Yeah, I am both happy and also kind of a little bit insulted that people don't Google you, because I'm like, I'm interesting, aren't I? Wouldn't like one of my students Google me? I was like, they never do. Every once in a while I have a student who will ask about it because they did Google, but it's rare enough that, like, I've got 60 new students every semester. I would think it would happen all the time. It doesn't come up that much. And maybe it's just they just don't think the way they, but I Googled, once Google was a thing, every professor, oh, what are they into? Like, that's the first thing you do before day one of the class. I just want to know everything I can about this person, not to suck up, but just like, what are they like? Oh, this person seems cool, this person doesn't. And I don't understand not checking. I think I was more like one of those people who was like so into being a young person. I would be more like, why would I care what a gross old person does? No interest. And I'm like,
maybe.
yeah, I'm that person now. It's fair.
It's probably what's happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I had some kids. So I had this semester I did teach. I was, one of the classes I taught was a narrative and technology. But it was basically narrative theory that I taught 2 sections of. and I went through basically a whole different theoretical frameworks, and one of the ones I used was Roland Barthes narrative and from Mythologies, and the first entry in that is called On Wrestling, on Professional Wrestling.
That's right,
by Roland Barthes.
Such a good piece.
And I had this. I wonder, is this fascinating for any of our listeners?
I don't know. I said we were going to keep it loose today. There's no outline.
This is what we do. So I had them read this thing called it's On Professional Wrestling. If you've never read it before, and if you've never read it before and you're the kind of person who enjoys our show, you might very well enjoy this essay. It is extremely accessible, and that's why I don't mind giving it to undergrads. So we read that, and then I was like, okay, and now I want you to, now having read this, I want you to analyze this professional wrestling match as a narrative. And they're like, okay. And then I gave them one of mine, and I didn't mention that I was in it. I just like, and here's a professional wrestling match. I've put a video on Canvas on our course website. Download it, watch it, use his framework, use his methodology, and just analyze what's going on. Who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, or the hero or the bastard, which is what Bart calls him and everything, and just like analyze it. And it's amazing how to like try to read the homeworks after the fact and see which students get a chuckle out of the fact that it's me versus the ones who aren't sure and don't want to say and don't want to be like presumptuous. It's like, and then there's the international males, so me and Shima, that it's like they appear to be the bad guys, and some people are like, one of them is shockingly familiar looking, and it's like, that's funny, like, but the other one is be like we're like, and I was like, I've read some people just not mentioned at all. I'm like, it's clearly me. Yes, I mean, I'm 12 years younger than I am now, but like, it's, how do you not see that it's me? What's wrong with you? So like when I give the lecture the next day, my PowerPoint says, today we're doing On Wrestling, and then in parentheses, and isn't the one guy from the International Males really super cute? And that's my subtitle. So
nice.
And then they'll laugh. They're like, "It is you." I'm like, "Yeah, it's me." Like, they literally say, "And Christopher Maverick." And I'm like, "That's my name." like this. So
that's amazing. I don't have anything to compare to that. I don't.
No.
I'm self-conscious about, like, the desire of past me to appear cool to my students, and now I'm like, I need to abandon that, because that's a fool's errand, and is not wanting your students to think you're cool is definitely uncool.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna backfeed that and not go down. But that is awesome though.
It is better to just not care, but
yeah.
But if I'm gonna do it, and it's weird because I guess because I'm not in that world anymore. I mean, I've got friends who are still wrestlers, but I would feel weirder requiring someone to read one of my essays or something.
Yeah.
Than I would, and now that said, I've had, like, I don't know, freshman year, I took Introduction to World History with Peter Stearns, Professor Peter Stearns at Carnegie Mellon. And our textbook was An Introduction to World History by Peter Stearns. Like, that was like, I've had lots of classes where the professor is like, yeah, here's the course textbook. It's my book. You have to go buy it because I want $20. Like, like, I don't know what but I've had that a lot. And I would feel weird about that. But I don't feel weird about making them watch a 10-minute wrestling match with me in it at all. So I don't know.
Do your students come across Claremont Run, Andrew? Like, do they talk to you about it?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I think the audience for Claremont Run is usually a little older. But yeah, no, I've had students come up and say, "Hey, I saw your tweet," that kind of thing, which is weird, I think. And I know some of them follow it, which is also weird because I feel like the things that I'm saying in that enterprise are therefore affecting my dynamic with my students in the classroom. And I'm very much a compartmentalized type person. I want work to be separate from research, to be separate from home life. So I don't like it when they do that, which is a weird thing to say.
I have, I teach one class I teach is composing digital media. So I guess that also probably there's a something that matters there that might not be clear to like our listeners. So I work for I got my job as I'm a teaching assistant professor of digital narrative and interactive design. I was specifically hired because I was good at digital humanities, like largely because of things like this show, right? Like so like they're aware, like my students often so the class that I teach on composing digital media is everything from writing and composition, but also how to do a podcast, how to do video editing, how to do, so like a lot of it is the fact that I do it is relevant to them. Like they want to know that, oh, okay, I'm interested in podcasting, and my professor really is a podcaster. Okay, so that means that maybe he knows something and isn't just like making it up as we go along. Now, granted, all podcasts are just made up as we go along, but like conceptually,
clearly, as this episode proves.
Yeah, conceptually, the idea being that like it is more than just me, saying theory. I think matters a little bit. In a way, and I guess it would matter too, like if you're teaching about, if you were doing a class on X-Men, like pretending Claremont Run didn't exist would be weird. Yeah, but I mean, it would be weird to be like, oh, if only there were someone studying this. Like, I mean, like you couldn't, like, I don't know how you would not mention it because it's just such an obvious resource.
Yeah, I mean, my stuff is so blended because a lot of my academic work has been incorporating the personal for a while now, and I spend a lot of time thinking about that though, and like how much I do want it to be blended or not, because I do get a little bit uptight about the blending sometimes, if it damages my credibility or something, or maybe I just worry about that. But then there's certain things too, like some people have suggested, like with everything going on with Twitter, we should make a Discord or something, and I had a lot of feelings about that. Like that wouldn't be something I would want to do because I wouldn't be comfortable sort of existing in that kind of space with like my fan identities and my academic identity blended, because I don't want to be under a pseudonym, because then all of the stuff that I do doesn't come with me. But like I don't really want to be in that space in my academic self, because to me, like being on like a fan culture Discord, like as my academic self, feels like I would just be like in my student discussion boards. Like it feels like work can be fun for me. Yeah,
I understand why people want like, so okay, this is again much more my other show than this. I absolutely understand the wanting to be separate from Twitter as it exists right now. This is it is completely viable to be like, I am afraid of Elon, we need to go somewhere else. That is a reasonable feeling to have. I don't think, and while I'm aware that a lot of people went from Twitter to Discord, I don't think that is as easy a substitution for the kind of work we do as it might be for people who are just using it for their personal community. Like if you're just using it to if you're using Twitter primarily to keep in touch with X-Men fans of various things, which is a large community and one that the three of us definitely participate in. Honestly, Twitter is probably the wrong platform for it. It's just where everybody happened to be, but Discord would be fine, right? But for academic work, what Claremont Run was, what Sequential Scholars is much more like publication, more so than a conversation. And Twitter is actually just way better at that than I think. Like it just, I'm on several Discords. I mean, I have a Discord account. Yeah. I certainly have nothing against it. It just doesn't work the same way, and it doesn't feel the same way. And one of the frustrations, the reason academics are upset about what's going on with Twitter is, I know people are like, oh, get on Hive, get on Mastodon. They're not simple replacements. Again, as someone who studies that space, it's not just swapping out. One of the things that makes Twitter work so well is the thing that everybody hates about it. Everybody hates that Twitter, just everybody's on it and there's a bunch of undesirables, and you've got people being comic skaters or whatever, and people hate that. But also the freedom that allows them to exist is also what makes Twitter, because it's bad at siloing, it's what it's called. Facebook's very good at siloing. Twitter is really crappy at siloing, and it tries, but it does a very bad job of it. And that bad job is what makes it useful as a public square. So
Yeah.
it's hard to, like, Mastodon's kind of better at it because of the multiple decentralized servers. And so it's not as good for what we use it as. And if Elon destroys this, it's going to be really bad. It's gonna, frankly, beyond like just academic Twitter. I mean, and we love comics, but for things that matter, Twitter is very important as a pop culture global landscape thing right now for things like giving voices to the women's movements in that are developing in majority Muslim countries, trying to fight for the BLM movement that happened in the United States.
Me too.
Yeah, like there's so much of organization, LGBTQ communities in everywhere in the world, right? Like particularly if you are from a smaller, less progressive place. If you are from somewhere that is very conservative to where you feel alone, Twitter is the outlet that people have that allows them to the sense of community, to where, in all honesty, the last 3 months since Elon's takeover have probably resulted in people dying. I mean, as horrible as it sounds, people have probably literally died because organization doesn't work as well, or because someone feels more alone and more isolated. And it's not just as simple as just saying, switch to Mastodon. I understand why you want that, but it's not that simple. It is a much more complicated thing. And this is why I like comics better, because this is like talking about comics on this show is a lot more fun than kind of going over the weirdnesses of like how pop culture propagation actually works. But I'm happy to do that. So if anybody has questions, tweet me at Chris Maverick. It's right down there.
Oh yeah, I've got so many thoughts about it. There was somebody on CBC Radio yesterday, like talking about. We're back.
Okay, cool.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, that's okay. We're back, but we're not back with like the frame and stuff we used to have. Does that matter?
I'm there. I can see it. Can you guys not see the
Oh no, but as long as you can see it, it's fine.
Yeah,
I don't need to see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we were gonna transition into talking about Excalibur anyway, so let's just do that, and then it'll be like first half of our podcast talking about our boring jobs, and the second half talking about the comic book that you come to this podcast to hear us talk about. So that'll be good. So what I thought we would do is, so I kind of did like a best of 2022 voting thing, if you follow us on Twitter, that you will know that I was doing. This is not a very scientific poll. People were welcome to vote for whatever episode, but I did suggest 10 episodes I thought were sort of the ones that we had the biggest reaction to and stuff. So like that scaled our voting a little bit, but people did have some write-in votes as well. But these were the episodes that people gave their support to. So tied for first place, I've got visual props, Excalibur 67, Days of Futures Yet to Come, tied with, I should have done these in reverse order. That would have been more exciting. Anyway,
go to the end. Go to the end. Start over. Pretend you didn't know first.
All right, well, if we were going backwards, we had, it kind of worked out anyway, whatever. We had like ties for some stuff, but so coming in at number 5, we had Excalibur 53, The Litter, which was our Spider-Man episode with Dr. Zach Cruzy, in which we talked about Steve Ditko and objectivism and lots of awesome stuff. One of the episodes where we didn't talk about a lot of Excalibur, but it was fun for us to kind of step outside of that and discuss some other things that we know a lot about, but don't get to discuss that often. So I think people appreciated that convo. Coming in at number 4, we had the mega-sized, mega-shiny Excalibur number 50, Winner Loses All, featuring Rachel Summers' showdown with Necrom and everybody in Excalibur stepping inside everybody else. And of course, that episode was with the wonderful Dr. Andy Kunka. We talked a little bit about anniversary issues, and of course, we talked about a lot of super sex. I really enjoyed rhapsodizing about that one. Coming in at number 3, we had another very shiny Rachel Summers issue in Excalibur number 75. Hello, I Must Be Going. So again, a lot of people that voted for this one felt the need to specify, I hate this comic. But I really enjoyed your episode about it. That was with Daisy Litterner, talking about Rachel Summers and gender and sexuality and trans metaphors, and just bitching a lot about this misogynist as hell comic book and how much we hate it. So that was a fun episode. I think someone said that we were really on our game in that episode, and I was like, nice. We were. I mean, I was really angry. So, and I don't always let myself be angry about misogyny, but I was in the mood for it that day. And coming back to the top ones that I already spoiled, tied for the top spot, we had Excalibur 43, Home Comforts, of course, or Who Blew Up the Toilet, in which Brian and Kurt finally come to blows in and around Megan. And
in and around,
well, I mean, that's basically, well, yeah, I mean, I didn't want to say over Megan, because I was like, well, we had a debate about what they're actually fighting about, so I don't want to reduce it to that.
Yeah. I think it's over Megan a lot more than it's in her, but
okay, sure. Complicated choice of words there.
Yes.
But I was with the wonderful Dr. Nick Susanis, creator of Unflattening, which we complimented a lot in that episode, and yeah, talked a lot about comics for him, but also lots of character stuff, and really broke down that sexy trapeze sequence from a lot of different angles. Mav did a wonderful photography 101 lesson. Andrew talked about dreams. I talked a lot about gender, and yeah, and we also had a wonderful Twitter thread in response to that episode that I think about a lot, from one of our listeners, and I'll retweet it because I'm never tired of retweeting it. That was really inspired by that episode, to read Nightcrawler through a trans lens and kind of read the conflict between the characters like that, and I think about it all the time. I loved it so much that we could do something that inspires people to contribute and expand the discussion that way. It's just one of the best things about doing the podcast. Thank you so much for that. And at the top spot, we'll tied with number 43, which I already spoiled, Excalibur number 67, Days of Futures Yet to Come, which we did with the wonderful Stephanie Burt, talking about the end of the Davis era of Excalibur. Thought we brought a lot of joy and sadness and import to that episode, and that certainly came across. And anytime you can get Stephanie talking about Kitty/Kate Pride and Rachel Summers is a good day in our lives. Really enjoyed that conversation, and I'm just absolutely thrilled with those top spots. And I thought I'd give us a chance to kind of reflect on them a little bit, or like other favorite moments that we had from the year. But equally important is that I said anybody who voted for the top spot, anybody who voted in the best ofs would be entered into a draw to win a couple of prizes. So we better get that out of the way first. So the 2 prizes I'm giving away are, move that for a second. Oh, a wonderful t-shirt of your choice. You can get a Banff shirt, you can get a Nightcrawler shirt, you can get a Gosh Golly Wow shirt. We'll be in touch with you about your preference, whatever size and color you would like. And the other prize is going to be a copy of Age of X-Men Amazing Nightcrawler, the trade paperback version, featuring Kurt and Megan and Kylan. A little bit of an Excalibur tie-in there. I thought it would be appropriate for our listeners, and I somehow ended up with 2 copies. So, you know, it worked out.
Cool.
So yeah, let's draw. So the first person will get a, yeah. Oh, we have like a sound effect.
Oh yeah, yeah, I have a whole soundboard. Yeah.
I'll note that I'm drawing names out of this excellent 80s cap. I got it at Canadian Tire, and it was called a confusion cap. I don't know why it's called.
That's why it's confusing.
I know. I was like, well, I'm buying that. Oh, the tension, the tension. Who will it be? So the first place winner is going to get to choose which prize they want, and the second place winner gets whatever prize did not get chosen. Are you ready, Mav?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Oh, I'm drum rolling again. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear it on my end.
There you go.
Okay. First place prize. I hope I'm not pronouncing your Twitter name totally terrible, but it's Cameron Haycox. And you are going to get to choose between a t-shirt and the copy of the trade paperback. I know you've been following our podcast for a while. Thrilled to be able to send the prize your way. I will be in touch.
That's my superhero fanfare.
So exciting. All right. And our second place winner is friend of the pod and 2 times guest Claire Wall is going to get one of these prizes as well. Nice to be able to reward somebody for putting in the time with us. So I will be in touch with both of you, and we will figure out.
I never used the soundboard on this show. Actually, I have. Like, do you remember? So it's one of my favorite moments. The episode when we first started the Douglatt Chronicles, where I had the German robot speaking as me. That's on this. That's how I did that.
God, we could just be adding fart sounds to this podcast all the time. And
I could. I choose not to.
But yeah, anyway, like, I don't know. Did we have any thoughts or memories of recording any of those episodes, or any other kind of favorite moments? I mean, I'll go first quickly, just to say that, like, Excalibur 43 is my favorite issue. We talked about that a lot at the time, and it was. I'm happy that other people responded to that episode as well. I mean, I feel terrible picking favorite episodes because it seems like a judgment on our guests or something, because we love all of our guests so much, and we love every single episode, and every single episode is my baby, and it's not a judgment on that, but it's more that it was my favorite issue, and it just made me think a lot about how lucky we are to be able to talk about these things in this space, and to get like wonderful people to talk about them with us. And by that I mean, of course, the 2 of you and the
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, and like, yeah, yes, we can. Can you hear us?
Yes, I got booted, and I don't know how much I missed, and I'm back now. So I did you guys see me get booted or no?
Yeah.
I missed probably a minute or two. I know what was wrong. I was on the wrong internet. I was on like an old I have a backup internet thing that it runs like, very, very slow 802.11b network that I was on for some reason. So I should be much faster. I should be much faster now. So hopefully I won't get booted. I won't get booted again. So I don't know how bad that is for, so apologies to whatever our listeners are for whatever got kind of dropped from our video feed when I edit this later today, because I don't know what got skipped when I got put it off right there, so sorry.
Well, it was mostly me rhapsodizing you by Excalibur 43 and how much I enjoyed talking about it, and I said a lot of that in that episode, so just go listen to the episode. And yeah, I really love the conversation about Excalibur 67 as well. And I came up with a great essay title based on the conversations that we had with Nola in the previous episode and with Stephanie in that episode, that I don't know when I'll ever get a chance to write, but I'm putting it out there, that I was going to write an essay called Continuity is a Feminist Utopia, and I haven't written it yet, but it's a great essay title, and I'm going to get to it.
Yeah.
I know. It makes so much sense in my mind, but I just have not had the space or time to work on that, but maybe someday.
I'd be very curious
to read that. Did the 2 of you have? Yeah, well, I mean, I'm gonna write it on air now, but I'm just thinking about one of the things that always bothered me when I was first getting into superhero comics and sort of accessing a bunch of the academic discourse was how the elements of melodrama and serialization that are so commonly associated with quote unquote feminine types of consumption was just not considered very forcefully in the discourse. And I thought that was wild, because that was what appealed to me from it. And like, that was sort of where I was coming in. And then thinking about, we talked about sort of like queer temporalities and stuff a lot, and in that episode, and thinking about the way those continuities kind of come together can be like opening the door to having some of those conversations about what is like the gender of consuming these kinds of stories, which again, everything in scare quotes, because these are just sort of discourses around gender and not the way gender quote unquote is, because the way gender quote unquote is magic and a million things and a million continuities blending together. This would be the essay. But anyway, someday. But yeah, do the two of you have thoughts about any of those top apps or any of the other ones we recorded over the year? How about you, Andrew?
I think the one that I think of, just kind of coming off of what you're saying, 75, and just the opportunity to collectively mourn Rachel. Because when you're reading Excalibur in 75 and you're part of like that more, I don't know, broad culture, and it felt like she was discarded. And it's like issue 75 was all about, we don't need Rachel. Britannic is cool and awesome now. Let's do that instead. So being able to revisit that with a group who understood what the real value was and how awesome Rachel was, that's a secondary chance to mourn a character that I felt like the first time I mourned that character, I was very much alone in doing so. You know what I mean? Just again, because of the broader current. So that was a delightful moment for me personally.
How about you, Mav?
Similar. I don't have it. For me, it's not a particular issue. It is this was when we decided to do this show, and I've made jokes about it. I knew going in that there's what I called the Excalibur rough patch, right? And it's pretty much been, we're not quite out of it yet, but it's pretty much been our last 20 or so shows, right? Like it's been from the point where Davis starts being rushed and like only doing every other issue through now, where it's like, you know, we tease Lobdell a lot, but all things said, Lobdell got the book out on time. That was like his skill, right? Like Lobdell's what?
It's such a low bar.
No, yeah. It's a huge bar, right? Because at a time where that like in today's market, it's different, right? In today's market, if the book's not ready to ship, there's just no Excalibur in June, right? Like that's just fine, and we'll revamp the schedule. That was not a thing in 1994, right? Like that's not how comics worked back then. Right. The book needed to be on time, and which is why you ended up with so many fill-in artists and everything. It's just like, this needs to ship, and I it's not necessarily the way I like storytelling, but it is what the book needed to be. And it resulted in, because I cared about continuity a lot more then than I do now. I actually have like, I've written a lot talking about, when Anna writes about it, I've written a lot about how I don't care about continuity. I no longer think that's the interesting part of what I like about comics. I'm willing to read every individual issue for what it is, and then just like, given what comics have become in the last 20 years plus TV shows and movies and everything, I'm willing to give allowances in order to just sort of enjoy a story and give creative freedom and things like that. It's a much more complicated issue, but less so back then. So there's a lot of, because there's so many points where everybody's out of character, because there's so many points where it's just like, fuck it, we're getting rid of Rachel because we need to do this greater thing where we're bringing this into the X universe, and because we want to play with Phoenix and Jean, and we've got it. Like, there was so much that is just done out of editorial mandate that I hated back then, and I'm not terribly fond of now. So in the same way as Andrew was saying, it's not an individual issue. It's that entire segment being able to read with people who appreciate it and see something in it. You know, even on those, you know, we had people write in and say, I hated issue 75, but it was, you know, good to read with friends. Yeah, that right. Yeah. Right. It is. Excalibur was not a popular book when I was reading it back then. It's remembered nostalgically, right? This was never the top selling X book. It wasn't anywhere near the top of the Marvel pantheon. Like, this was quite frankly a book that Marvel just kept trying to make happen over and over again, right? Like, the reason there's so many, hey, and now we're gonna now we're going to do Phalanx Covenant, is because Marvel just really wants Excalibur to matter, and it doesn't matter. And part of what I liked about it was that it was off in its own little pocket, not mattering. So like it could be quirky, and you could just go on a cross time caper for like a year and a half and no one would miss you because like it doesn't matter. So that's what I loved about the book. And being able to mourn the loss of that with people who see value in both what's happening and, you know, a lot of, you know, even if I don't necessarily agree with someone's reading on something, that's fine, because people see the interest in, hey, let's see what there is to analyze in this particular issue. So it's been that for me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so well said, and totally. I will admit, like, as a behind the scenes thing, like it's been a bit of a struggle lately in the sense that I used to get really excited reaching out to guests to be on the podcast, because if I think about something like Excalibur 43, I was like, oh my God, I get to share one of my favorite comics with someone, right? And that's like exciting. And, you know, we've had great guests during this rough patch. I'm so grateful for everything that everybody's been bringing to the podcast. Has been unbelievable. But at the same time, like the X-Men continuity stuff is part of it, because I didn't feel as bad bringing somebody who wasn't sort of a big X-Men head into it in some of our like Davis and Claremont era issues, because it was still just a good comic that could stand on its own and we can talk about comics. But now that we're doing something like Phalanx Covenant, I'm just like, it becomes harder to do that. And I've been trying really hard to get people who are sort of in the X-Men space and like can speak to the comic space too, but then that like kind of limits my pool of guests a little bit more. So I've been struggling a little bit like that. I'm curious about how it's going to be with, because I think we can all agree that it does get better in the Warren Ellis era. And I am looking forward to talking about that. And the art gets better too. I mean, we're going to get artists like the dearly departed Carlos Pacheco like on art, and I do want to talk about his style and that kind of thing. It's still not the same though, because it's going to continue being more connected to the wider X-Men universe. And I think I'm still going to have to do a lot of thinking about like kind of guests that will be sort of the best kind of value on certain issues and stuff. But I'm working on it. I do kind of miss though just being able to like invite a venerable comic scholar and be like, bring comic scholarship to this. And I think we're going to get back to that a little bit, but we'll see how it goes.
I feel better about it. I mean, so the Ellis run, the thing that's going to come up there is going to we're going to have people who are like, you know, there's the behind the scenes stuff with Ellis where like there's going to be,
we will talk about,
we'll deal with it. Like, and I understand that, but the comics are objectively better than some of what we're dealing with now. And so I feel less weird about it. Like, I mean, I'm trying to, I don't want to, you always said you don't want to call people out. So I'll call out really good friends of ours, right? I will say it doesn't matter what the book is if we're going to invite Michael Hancock on or Wayne Wise or John Dorowski, like people who are literally just literal buddies of ours, you know, like it doesn't, like, I think Michael's been on the most, right? Isn't he our literal most frequent guest? He's probably up there.
I think Matt Linton has been on the most because
also
he's been
possible.
on 3 episodes.
3 episodes? Okay, so yeah, and so quite possibly, and it doesn't. And I'm sure he's listening, and he'll say, "Yeah, I'll come on and talk about whatever," right? Because it doesn't matter, right?
We love you, Matt. Thank you.
And it's appreciative, right? Because it's like this does not have to be good. You're not going to stop being our friend. That's
exactly.
That's kind of what it is, right? Please come talk about this really bad comic with us. And that's harder, like. You know, it's harder to do if the person doesn't, you know, didn't read it all before and doesn't, you know, like I hate for some of these where it's like, if this is your first issue of Excalibur and then you go, why would anybody read this? Why would you read it? And why would you do 126 episodes? This is horrible, you know, like I feel weird about stuff like, you know, even, you know, we just finished doing the Douglock series, right? I had a lot of fun with every single issue of Douglock, but they're bad. Those are not good books. Yeah, so.
And we have to bring so much to it to make it work. Like, I just quickly, like, you know, Claire was like, well, I'm really interested in this guy emerging through this robot. I was like, yes, Claire, you're right. It is very interesting, but go like, and then I sent her like a copy of Slumber Party and the New Mutants Annual. And even just flipping through the two of those, I like almost died. I was just like, oh my God, it's so much better. Oh, I forgot what a good comic looks like. Oh, Sienkiewicz art. Oh, Davis at the height of his powers. This is so beautiful.
The storyline makes sense.
I was like despairing about, yeah. I was like, yes, it is interesting. It's just that it was so much better in these other comics. But anyway, Andrew, sorry.
No, I was just going to say the one that I kind of got a kick out of was Deborah Whaley, who we brought on to talk Braddock of the Jungle. And all three of us were like, we're so sorry. We're so sorry.
Yeah,
and she was giddy to analyze that comic. It was delightful.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is horribly offensive.
Like there's been a couple of times where I've set up the issue to be so bad that the guest came on. They're like, I was expecting this to be the worst thing that's ever existed, and honestly, it wasn't the worst thing that's ever existed, probably. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, yeah, I set the bar so low.
I call that the Song of the South effect. Have either of you ever seen Song of the South?
I've not watched it.
Yeah, see, nobody has. And people, so like, just given the discourse around Song of the South, in your mind, it is, I mean, so here's it. Song of the South is a million times better movie than you think it is. It is not a good movie. It is a million times better than you believe it is, given the discourse around it, because like people, what you know about it is this is a horribly racist thing. Why was this allowed to exist? And it's not. It is a racist to the level of what you'd expect from mid-century big budget television or big budget film to about antebellum South. It's Reconstruction just post Civil War era. It is racist in exactly the way that you would expect it to be. Yeah, but it's not, and Disney is embarrassed by it, but like people expect it to be like, oh my God, this is a Klan movie. No, it's not that. It's just there's a magical Negro, and there's it's embarrassing from a 2022 perspective, but it's not what people think it is anymore. So I think that sometimes we will allow things to, because we don't like them, I think we will allow them to be mythologized into even worse than they are, and that sort of deadens the blow a little bit, right? You were talking about like both episodes of the Wakanda thing. I think who are our two guests? Our two guests on
Michael. We had Michael Dando talking about Afrofuturism in the other episode too, which was great.
Yeah, and both times they were like, "Oh, this wasn't quite as bad as I thought." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." Again, no one's ever going to say these are good. I enjoyed these comics. That's not what. No, they're not enjoyable, but we talk about them as though we're like clutching our pearls and going, oh my God, it's so scandalous. And it's not. It's just bad. It's just mediocrely bad.
Well, and then the scholarly value of that is to like, hey, let's like see how they were presenting Black Panther and Wakanda in 1993. Yes. And it is kind of important to note how deeply problematic it was, because I mean, just erasing that and not talking about it isn't great either, because I mean, the thing about being scandalized by certain things too is like a revisionist history, because like, as you're saying, things were not considered controversial at the time. This is like just what people were doing, and it's important to acknowledge that as well. And I don't think that means we have to watch every offensive thing or whatever, but I mean, that's why these things are still part of our cultural studies discourse, because we're academics that study what culture is, so there's value to that. But yeah, I don't know any other moments or anything from the year that, well, I mean, maybe I'll ask the question differently. Like, we did like a reflecting on the first year of the podcast, like last time. Like, has this year been different? Has it been the same? I mean, we already talked about some of this a little bit in terms of, obviously this has been a different era of comics. So we had like kind of Davis era for half the year, and then we've had kind of the post-Davis era for half the year. So I feel like that's sort of broken the year in two a little bit. I mean, so much of my year has been dominated with all of the behind the scenes stuff that I was dealing with. Listeners will know that my mother passed away in June, and well, I don't know if listeners will know that. I don't talk about it much, but put it on social and everything. So it's
Mhm.
just been a lot this year, but I was really thinking about the consistency of doing the podcast and what a challenge it is, but then also what a good thing that is, like kind of when your life is up in the air, because we started it shortly after her diagnosis, and then just I don't know, like knowing that we have this to come back to, especially when some of my employment was very shaky. Like over the last year, I was just kind of doing a
Mhm.
lot of piecemeal jobs. But so I am worried that like next term I'm a lot busier because I did start this when I was unemployed. So I'm a bit worried about that. But like at the same time, like I'm committed, man. We got like another 10, 11 months, something about like that to finish Excalibur, and what an achievement this will be. I have that in my sights. It feels like we're getting so close. I was just like, we're podcasting about number 82 next week.
Mhm.
Like we're so close that I'm just like, oh, I know, but like that's still like like a lot of weeks. Plus we got committed to it. There's another annual that we have to talk about that I forgot about.
And we talked about it's weird because when we started, it's like, oh god, we've got to do 120 how many of these? It's just it does fly by, and it is we shouldn't talk about it, like it's not like we did some monumental thing that nobody's ever done. Like we've got friends who do movie by minute podcasts, like like which just
and you've done like how many episodes of Vox Pop? Hundreds?
250-ish. I think 48 I think is this week. I know I seriously lose track. But that's what I'm getting at. Like it's weird because in some ways, as much work as it is to do for me 2 shows every week, it's also kind of my safe space, right? Like it is it is another job. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't, it isn't, but also it's the way that I relax from week to week, right? Like it makes it, like at the end of the day, I get to sit down and talk about some pop culture thing and then some comic book for an hour every week. And it's, that's like my hangout time. And we've had conversations off the air and this is just how we talk. It's not like, as nerdy and weird as it is, like we're weird nerds who are going to randomly compare Foucault to Claremont. That's just the thing that we do.
I was like, in what ways can we compare them? Like their styles, their turtlenecks, their
see that's the thing. I literally just picked 2 names, and then like, because we're weird nerds, Anna's like, oh wait, can we really do that, please?
There's something there.
There's something, which is just, that's how you get this job, right? It's dumb and it's absurd, and useful. Like it's weird because I always disparage what I do, and it's like, okay, Anna, you started this episode by going, like, oh, this is a job, somehow we read comics. I always say I read funny books for a living. Like my job is literally reading the funny books, which is silly and stupid, and I am so eternally thankful. It's also a gross misrepresentation of what I do, right? Like my job is I'm a cultural theorist who teaches the value of digital humanities mostly to STEM students, but also to humanities. Like it's a much more complex thing, and I feel better about myself if I say, but I read funny books, right? Like it's like it is like a a self flagellation. I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm minimizing it. I do think it's useful, but also the fun part of it is just this show. Like after this show, I'm gonna go and wrap Christmas presents. No, because it's Christmas is tomorrow and I'm already done. I forget the future. But I'm gonna go and I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna work on this article, which I'm also enjoying, but where I'm trying to make an argument about posthumanism in Batman comics. And so I like the fact that this is my job is just like, kind of great, so I don't know.
I don't know. How about you, Andrew? Please tell me that this is a comfort and a safe space and a good recreation for you, and not one too many things on your in your overstuffed schedule.
No, this is great. That continuity is there, not just in talking to you guys every week, but in talking about the characters that the three of us love every week. There's a weird week by week
And Brian.
continuity, sort of granular analysis there. Yeah.
The characters we love
For
and
me,
Brian.
for me, I think the big thing is I can hide from my kids once a week. I've got the
Andrew is the best dad. Don't get the wrong impression, listeners.
no. I'm a very involved father. I'm up with them in the morning. I make their breakfasts. I'm with them at night when they can't sleep. All that stuff.
Behind the scenes thing, like sometimes Andrew disappears at the end of a recording because we go too long, because he has a hard cutoff for kid bedtime, because he has got to be there, and he has never once shirked that responsibility.
It's like if you ever get to the end of the show and you notice that only three voices say goodbye, but not well no, sometimes it's weird because again, behind the scenes, sometimes we'll record Andrew's goodbye and then it gets spliced into the end of the episode because we happen to be recording 15 minutes past 8 o'clock, so we have to, and it's just like, oh, Andrew was strangely silent for 15 minutes. Okay, so my favorite one, maybe my favorite episode, and it's not this last year because it was the first year of the show. There's one episode, and I can no longer remember which one it was, but there's an episode where I got bumped for like 15 minutes, and I texted you guys. I could, like, literally the internet in my house just died, and I was like, I don't know if I can come back or not. We don't have Fios right now, so I'll come back. And then it came back like 15 minutes later, and you guys were still recording, and I just jumped back in. But like, there's just an episode where, through the magic of podcasting, like, this is just how it works. Sometimes people disappear, and it's Anna's job to fix all that in post. So congratulations.
Sometimes easier than other times. Anyway, Andrew, sorry, we interrupted your reflection.
No, I think I was done. Hide from my kids. It's important. Talk to adults. Weird that I choose to talk to adults about comic books, but that's definitely my personality, so it's good.
This is grown-up stuff.
Do you want to do a few listener questions? We just have some fun ones.
Okay.
Sure.
Who do you think is Lockheed's second favorite member of Excalibur?
Rachel, and it's not even close.
I mean, my knee jerk was to go Kurt because they've had adventures together before, but I don't know. They have kind of an antagonistic relationship.
Exactly.
So,
he doesn't like him.
Yeah.
Of the originals, absolutely Rachel. I'm trying to think
Well, then Peter, when he joins, because Lockheed, as we know, is a Kitty Colossus shipper.
Right. Yep. So, and I was going to say, so of the originals, Rachel, unless you count Widget as a member, which I think you can. Widget and Lockheed become very close during the, before we know Widget's Kate, but like Widget and Lockheed are close, so probably closer than Rachel. But that's because they're both treated like animal sidekicks, and so it's just kind of adorable to send them off together. So yeah, I probably, of the ones that I think you think of as members of the people, Rachel, and then maybe later Peter Rasputin is what, because there's two Peter.
Oh
yeah, Kitty has many Peters in her life. Yes, Peter.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to, like, when your thing is like, oh, what's your thing? What are you attracted to? Guys with this one name.
Yep.
Like, it's just like, ooh, his name's Pete. It's literally Kitty has dated 3 different Peters, 4 if you do multiple continuities, because she dated Peter Parker. In the Ultimate Universe, which is just weird that you keep doing that. That is a weird, kink to have, but okay. It's your thing.
Whose kink is it? Is it the writers or is it the characters?
By the time you're at the 4th one, I think you're doing it on purpose, right? Like,
well, Bendis did 2 of them, so
that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I have to think he kind of thought that was funny. But another one for you. What writer who never wrote for Excalibur do you wish could write for Excalibur? That's a good one.
That's a good question.
From that time period, I would go Peter David. I really like what he did on X Factor, but I think that contemporary group dynamic would be really cool with Excalibur.
All right.
Okay, so yes. If from
It doesn't have to. I think it can be any era. I'm saying any era.
It's and here's where it's weird, right? Because if I'm thinking of like, okay, how do I make it feel like the Excalibur that I like? I would say, definitely Peter David, and I love the pad run of. I like the original X Factor better than the one that, I think most people, when they say they're X Factor fans, I think they mean X Factor Investigations with Jamie Madrox. I like the original run. I like the working for the government under Forge. Yeah. I love it. That's some of my favorite comics. Everybody knows I'm also a huge Teen Titans fan. Wolfman and Perez would have done brilliant Teen Titans. You know how I know? I'm sorry, would have done brilliant Excalibur. I know because that era of Teen Titans did that, right? Like a lot of what we love about Excalibur happens in that original run of New Titans. There's differences, they're different characters, but I would have found that interesting. I'm trying to think, is there anybody that would have done...
my cat is rolling around in the comics that I set on the couch for this episode right now and just knocking them all down. It's just a really horrific display. Anyway,
I see her tail. Yeah, her tail just coming.
Yeah, I see occasional tail.
Everyone. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anybody who just would have been completely different, who would have brought something unique to it. That's not because when I answer questions like that, who would have done this? What I'm trying to say is, who could have given me the most Claremonty Davis-y stuff? But
Leah Williams.
Yeah, but
of today's writers, Leah Williams could do it.
Well, but I'm wondering if would it have been even more interesting to have somebody just completely wacky and different, like, hey, let's give it to Alan Moore, but I don't even want Alan Moore. I'm thinking like Amanda Connor from would yeah, she, like, her version of Harley is silly and fun, but in a very different way than Excalibur is silly and fun. And in a way that I enjoy. I mean, I'm not in a bad way. Gail Simone's one of my favorite writers of comics.
Well, you know that Gail recently tweeted like that, people were like, well, what would your X-Men book be? And she's like, well, it would be a Nightcrawler-led team, and he would choose the members of the team based on who would be fun on missions. I was like, oh, please, please, I deserve that right now. It's the literal opposite of where he currently is in comics. Please.
And he's a demon.
Oh, God, please save me.
Who's your pick, Anna?
Well, I was thinking of different things. I'm like, I'm less of a Peter David fan than the two of you, but I was thinking of just people who've done kind of books that were kind of like had kind of a similar vibe. And I was thinking of Kieran Gillen. I was thinking of, how much Young Avengers, kind of his run on that kind of seemed very Excalibur-y, and just killed it on writing Nightcrawler lately. So I would love any more Kieran Gillen Nightcrawler. I was thinking of that run that Matt Fraction and Mike Allred did on FF, and like how that had a little bit of an Excalibur vibe too, although I wasn't the biggest fan of Matt Fraction's X-Men. X-Men spoils good writers, so I don't know why that happens.
But Fraction's Hawkeye is brilliant.
Thinking,
Fraction's Hawkeye,
exactly.
Fraction's Hawkeye, absolutely. Fraction's Hawkeye with the vibe between Clint and Kate, absolutely, positively, 100% fits into this book. Just like absolutely, just lift them right out and dump them right in here, and I think it would be perfect. So,
and then Ryan North's been on my mind. He's got a new She-Hulk comic that I haven't read yet on Marvel Unlimited with Javier Rodriguez, and I love his sense of humor. I think that for the absurdity of Excalibur, he could be a fun writer on it too. So those were my choices.
Nice.
I went contemporary with it if I was going to have a redo of it in the present. But because the new Excalibur it's not a comedy absurdity thing like the old Excalibur. It's its own thing at all. It's its own thing, and that's fine. But yeah, it's not really the same vibe that drew me to that original series.
Right.
We've got a who would win in a fight question. You want to do that one for our last question? Crazy Gang versus TechNet. Who's coming out on top?
TechNet.
Yeah. Crazy Gang's overpowered, but TechNet, they're fighters. They want it more.
Yeah. There's two times as many of them. And I mean, So who would win in a fight? Is the answer is always what does the story demand? But if I'm playing
That's
this
what I was
out
gonna
with just
say.
if I'm playing this out just stat against stat, pound for pound, I'm gonna do this in the Marvel superhero role playing game, phase rip system. TechNet wins.
My answer was going to be like hedged by like, yeah, well, what's more funny? And I was like, well, it's more funny if TechNet loses because you would expect them to win. So that's kind of where I was going with the question, but that's a cheat answer.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, if I'm just if I think that a good story is always the right answer, right? But when people ask that question, what I think they're asking is, hey, two guys running each other in a in a field, right? Like you just run and start pounding on each other in Mortal Kombat style, where you're just mashing buttons, right? Like, and I feel like in that situation, TechNet just is more powerful, I think.
That is fair. That is fair. The last question that we had, which I think we're going to relitigate later, was another question about whether Lockheed could talk, because the speculation is he only seems to talk when Pete Wisdom's around. So is his speech actually just a figment of Pete's twisted imagination? I think we're going to have to revisit that question as we have so much opportunity to talk about character find of 1995 Pete Wisdom.
What do you guys think? I'm curious because we might change our mind as we're reading it, but I have a gut feeling, because I haven't reread those in years, and I certainly haven't reread them as a group, right, ever. So I have a gut feeling on that, and I wonder where you guys are.
A gut feeling on the Lockheed question?
Yeah, on Lockheed, on whether he can talk.
Thus far?
Well, the question is for that run, right? Like the question is
okay, for the Ellis area.
I assume that's what they're asking, and specifically in regards to Pete Wisdom and Lockheed, or are they talking all along?
Just in general. Okay. I mean, I'm gonna be a jerk and like I don't have an answer. I think that I don't have a strong opinion on it, other than certain people perhaps perceive speech and certain people don't for various reasons.
I think he can't. I think he understands. I think he is. It goes back to the thing we had we had the discussion very early on as to whether or not he's a pet, and I don't think he's a pet. I think he's absolutely a sentient, 100% intelligent creature. That is.
We had one of our most vigorous debates on this question.
We did.
Yeah, but I don't think, but I don't think he can speak in English. I don't think his vocal cords work that way. I think that's Pete's imagination. However, I will say that I don't know if we've ever mentioned this before. As a child, one of my favorite novel series was The Wizard of Oz. I was a big, huge fan. I read all of them, and in The Wizard of Oz, about it's like book 6. It's not in the first. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember exactly which. I think maybe it's in TikTok of Oz. In one of the books, there's a point where Dorothy notices, she's like, she says, so Glinda, I think she's talking to Glinda, where she's maybe it's Ozma, I don't remember, but she's like, how come animals can talk in Oz except for Toto? And Dorothy and Glinda tells Dorothy, why don't you ask Toto? And then Dorothy's like, wait a minute. And then she runs over, because the Cowardly Lion talks all the time, and it's the Pluto Goofy problem, right? Dorothy notices that Toto doesn't speak, and so she finally runs and grabs him, and she's like, you can talk, can't you? Tell me why you don't talk. And then he's finally like, if I talk, will you set me down? And that's it, and that's how she finds out Toto can talk, because so Toto's a human dog. I mean, not a human dog, he's an earth dog who gets brought to Oz, and all the animals in Oz can talk. And then once Dorothy realizes that there are other, Belinda the hen, who's a chicken that gets brought from Kansas to Oz, and she can talk when she gets there, and she's like, why can't Toto talk? It's like, Toto didn't feel like talking to you, and he was perfectly happy to be treated like a dog and be fed, and like, and like, he had a pretty good gig going, and so he just opted to not speak for like 5 books. that's how you find out. And then from then on, Toto's just like, yeah, fine, I'll talk, like like, but it was just it was clearly probably an oversight. Like L. Frank Baum just realized that, wait, it's really stupid for me to have exactly one animal that can't talk in this book, so I might as well fix it. But it's a good 5 or 6 books in, and so I guess
that's
you can
too
view
fun.
Lockheed that
Ask
way, but I don't
Toto.
think so. I think
Yeah.
Lockheed just can't talk.
Yeah.
Andrew,
I mean, if
you
we're
just-
going to be technical about it, I'm leaning towards can't talk, but Andrew, thoughts?
Can't talk, can't do the phonemes, can understand speech, could in theory articulate it if you had the muscles to do so,
Mhm.
but cannot. That's my
Yeah.
theory.
Very technical answer.
Thank you.
Okay, here I'll end with a question about what we have in store. Like, I mean, I haven't reread everything we have in store. I've reread smatterings of it, but anything that we're excited to talk about in our third year. It's our third year, I think. I was like, is that right?
Mhm.
Time has lost meaning, but yeah, it's going to be our third and final year of the podcast. You're talking about the Ellis era and what comes after the Ellis era. And yeah, anything that we are particularly looking forward to. How about you, Andrew?
I'm looking forward to talking about Colossus, actually. It's a character I really struggled to write about on the Claremont run. Like, if you ever did a content analysis, you'd see that I basically never did, except in very rare cases. But I do find the character fascinating. He was my favorite when I was a teenager. So I'm excited to have a second chance with the support of you and Mav in order to engage with the concept of who that character is.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about masculinity with that character. And
Yeah.
like, we will have some interesting combos about masculinity coming up, like between Pete and Colossus and Kurt, like with Kurt in the leadership role. And Britannic/Brian is just going to get less and less interesting as this book goes on. But we are going to have sort of a return to some of those conversations about masculinity that I used to enjoy so much. So I am looking forward to some of that. How about you, Mav?
Same. I like Colossus a lot. I've always liked Colossus a lot. I am excited to explore the differences between the Colossus relationship with Kitty and the Pete Wisdom relationship with Kitty. I like young adult Kitty a lot as a character. Like, some people really want her to be a child. Some people really like where she is now in comics as Kate. I like, and I get why. I get why people associate with both of those characters. My favorite version of Kitty is between 18 and 25 years old and just trying to, like, my favorite version of Kitty is I'm a grown-up. I've been doing this since I was 13. Please stop treating me like I'm a child, because everybody sees me that way. Like, that's the definitive Kitty to me. So, like, in as much as I understand why people are sort of annoyed by the Pete Wisdom relationship, I like the Pete Wisdom relationship because it represents the 19-year-old girl who's like, stop treating me like I'm 13. He didn't know her. Like, so I get why, I get why it works for her, right? And it's complicated and it's weird and it's wrong. I don't want them to end up together, but I like the humanity of it. And I will, preview for my favorite moment. Certainly my favorite non Claremont and Davis moment, quite possibly my favorite moment in the entirety of Excalibur, is coming up this year, which is I like when Kurt tells Peter that he's a child.
I'm really looking forward to talking about that.
It is my, it's like, I mean, it's a spoilers for something coming up, but one of my favorite moments in the entirety of the book is when Peter comes back and Kurt says, "You're a child and I've been treating you as such." And it's like, ooh. That is absolutely my favorite part of like, my favorite part of what's coming up is when he's like, "I started thinking of you as a child, and that's where you are, because that's how you're behaving." And because the insinuation is, and Kitty isn't,
Yeah.
and your child girlfriend that, like, she's a grown-up now, you're not. And that's and it's like, ooh, and it just feels, it's very soap opera-y and very, personal, and I believe every second of it, given what these characters have been through with each other. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
I'm worried I'm going to come away from it. Well, we have a couple of guests that are kind of going to come on that are Pete Wisdom fans. And I'm worried I'm gonna be I'm worried I'm gonna be talked into Pete Wisdom. I was like, oh, I don't know, this like emo British guy with a skinny tie. I was like, am I into that? Wait, I'm confused now, and I'm worried for what's gonna come.
We'll see. I mean, we'll talk about when we get there. I think a lot of again, I don't am I standing Pete Wisdom? Am I shipping? No, but I think it's I think that he gets an unfair rap that is mostly due to him not being Peter Rasputin, and B, for him stealing the innocence of this fictional 13-year-old girl who's not 13 anymore. So I think a lot of the hate for Pete Wisdom is because of what Pete Wisdom represents, which I think is interesting, as opposed to because he's done anything particularly wrong. There's an age gap, but like, you know, that's just comics of the 90s, right? And frankly, America of the 90s.
I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be the biggest kind of like shakeup of this book is going to be his arrival. So.
Yeah, and it's soon, coming soon. Pete Wisdom coming to. Oh God, do we want to do a month where we just kind of go like, do we need to do the Pride and Wisdom?
Oh yeah, we're already doing it. Liz Large is coming on to talk about it. That's already confirmed.
Okay, awesome. Okay, because I was like, because there is, you know, as far as spin-off things go, Pride and Wisdom is actually really interesting, and I've not read Kitty Pryde, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. in a long time. I can't remember if that's interesting or not. I don't think it is. Is it? I don't remember.
Good time to revisit like these Kitty Pryde eras, given Claremont back writing Extreme X-Men, which I assume Andrew will be hungrily devouring.
Do you have it? I bought the first one. I haven't reid it yet, so I
haven't got it yet.
Stephanie reviewed it for Comics XF, so check out her thoughts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap things up. We've had a very meandering but very fun conversation today. But you know, it's appropriate that's a little bit oversized because we are going to take next week off. We need a break, and then we will be back. The next episode is going to be Excalibur 82, our Phalanx Covenant confusingly titled crossover, and I believe scholar Jeremy Carnes is going to be joining us to talk a little bit of Indigenous futurism and Forge, and can I make a good conversation out of that and ignore the rest of the Phalanx Covenant crossover?
Are we going to explain it? Are we going to explain what a Phalanx is and what their, you know, what is in their covenant, or is it just going to be?
I'm not sure,
I've read it
but
before,
we are going to talk about Indigenous futurism.
Because I've read it before, and I don't know that I can explain that.
And yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. So that'll be coming your way in a couple of weeks, and then hopefully we'll be back to our weekly schedule. We'll see how badly this semester kicks my ass, and just like see how we do. But hopefully it becomes that, you know, break from my day job of talking to people about comics gets confusing when these identities blend. But anyway, yeah, thank you to the both of you, and like happy holidays. And I didn't mail you stuff in time, but I do have something in the works that maybe will make its way to you via email, so we'll see. But no pressure. That was just like because I'm doing Christmas stuff this week, and I was like, I think we each sent each other stuff last year, and so anyway, but I'm wishing you happy holidays this year. And yeah, what a pleasure to get to do this with both of you every week. I won't get too mushy about it, but
thank you both.
Yeah, it's always great. And thank you to everybody listening.
Yes. Whoever
or
listening,
watching, we're on video this time.
Well, editing, whoever was listening or watching this very rambling conversation, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again in the new year.
Merry Christmas.